An alarming report about a superbug fungus here in Nevada. Federal health officials have identified southern Nevada as the region with the highest number of cases of potentially lethal fungus called Candida Auris. The superbug is resistant to common antibiotics and can be a major risk for hospital and nursing home patients. The CDC tracked and found in 2022, Nevada had 16% of the country's cases of the superbug, followed by California and Florida. Since August of 2021, more than 1,000 people in southern Nevada have been infected with the fungus and 100 people have died. It spreads easily and can infect wounds, ears, and the bloodstream. Some strains are so-called superbugs that are resistant to all three classes of antibiotic drugs used to treat fungal infections.